Mozambique under Portuguese rule. 4 centuries of colonialism. 1500s–1975. Mozambique's colonial history is among the longest and most enduring in Africa. For over 4 centuries, the southeastern African country was under Portuguese control, a legacy that shaped its political, social, and economic structures well into the 20th century. From initial coastal settlements in the 1500s to full-scale colonization and eventual independence in 1975, Portuguese rule in Mozambique left a complex and often painful imprint on the nation's identity. Early contact and coastal settlements, 1498–1600s, Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama was the first European to reach the Mozambican coast in 1498 during his voyage to India. His arrival marked the beginning of European interest in the region. By the early 1500s, the Portuguese had established coastal trading posts and forts, especially in places like Mozambique Island, which became a key administrative and commercial hub. During this early period, Portugal's focus was primarily on controlling trade routes and establishing maritime dominance along the Indian Ocean. Mozambique served as a strategic port for ships heading to and from Asia, rather than a settlement colony. Colonial expansion and control of the interior, 1600s–1800s. By the 17th century, Portuguese interest expanded inland. The Portuguese relied heavily on prezeiros, Portuguese landholders who operated large estates along the Zambezi River. These settlers often acted like local lords, blending Portuguese and African customs and wielding significant influence over surrounding African populations. Mozambique also became deeply involved in the slave trade, with tens of thousands of people captured and sold to Portuguese colonies such as Brazil. Over time, this disrupted traditional societies and economies, creating patterns of inequality and violence that would last for generations. Despite centuries of presence, Portuguese control over the entire territory was limited. Much of Mozambique remained under the rule of indigenous kingdoms, Islamic sultanates, and Swahili trading networks well into the 19th century. The scramble for Africa and intensified colonization, 1880s–1930s. Following the Berlin Conference of 1884–85, Portugal solidified its territorial claims over Mozambique in response to competition from other European powers, especially Britain and Germany. To legitimize its rule, the Portuguese launched military campaigns to suppress local resistance and consolidate administrative control over the interior. Colonial rule became more formalized and extractive. The government imposed forced labor, cabalo, on local populations. European companies were granted concessions to exploit land and labor. Education and health services for Africans were extremely limited. Mozambicans were often treated as second-class citizens, while settler communities, mainly Portuguese, received the benefits of development and access to European institutions. Resistance and the road to independence. Throughout Portuguese rule, Mozambicans resisted colonial domination. From local uprisings in the early 20th century to the eventual formation of anti-colonial political movements, the desire for freedom was persistent. The most important of these was the Mozambique Liberation Front, FRELIMO, founded in 1962. FRELIMO launched an armed struggle in 1964, beginning a 10-year war for independence against Portuguese forces. The campaign gained momentum due to global anti-colonial sentiment, support from socialist countries, and Portugal's own political turmoil. In 1974, the Carnation Revolution in Portugal, an internal military coup that overthrew the dictatorship, led to the collapse of its African empire. On June 25, 1975, Mozambique finally achieved independence. Conclusion: Portuguese colonial rule in Mozambique was long, uneven, and profoundly impactful. It introduced European systems of administration, trade, religion, and education, but also imposed systemic exploitation, racial inequality, and cultural disruption. While independence brought the formal end to colonialism, the structures and scars of Portuguese rule remain deeply embedded in Mozambique's development trajectory. Today, the Portuguese language remains one of Mozambique's official languages, a living reminder of a complex colonial legacy that continues to shape its national identity.